Hey everybody, fun video today. This is my first ever grading return, courtesy of SGC. I'm going to be revealing grades on just a small order of 3 vintage cards that I submitted in February and just got back today. But stick around, I think the second part of this video is going to be more helpful for you as I walk through the financial rationale for why I made this submission and also what I expect for the sales from this with a complete breakdown of profit and loss for these 3 cards. So anyways, let's get to it. Dropped these off at a local card show in February. All told, I didn't count the business days it took for them to grade these, but it was slightly over the 5 to 10 day advertised window. And so all told, just under a month of calendar time to get these back to my mailbox. Anyways, this is kind of fun packaging here. You can see covering the grades nicely. I'll go ahead and do one of these classic reveals. I suppose they call these tuxedos. Once again, just 3 cards here. Nice they also include them in sleeves. So up first, 1967 Topps Hank Aaron. When I submitted this, I had kind of looked at the back and I had noticed some damage to that corner and also a little bit of staining. So I was kind of expecting a 3 as a likely grade and maybe a 2 or 2.5 if they really wanted to be strict. Survey says 3. Not too shabby. That is on par with expectations. Nicely presented card. I think it does look pretty good from the front, better from the front than the back, but looks pretty good. Some people complain about the slab thickness. Maybe it is thicker than PSA, that's for sure, but I don't really think it's too thick. I also don't have too many of these to pile together. Anyways, let's jump to the next one. 1972 Topps Willie Mays, number 49. This was a sharp-looking card. You can see the front there. I think it looks pretty good. There's a minor stain or maybe a printing defect on the right side of the card, so not sure how strict they're going to be. But, oh, that is awesome. Near mint 7. Very cool on this one. This has probably got to be a $100 or so card if I recall. Looking up comparable sales before submitting these. What a pretty card. So glad I got the 7 there. I was thinking they might knock it down to a 6 or so, but what do I know? This is my first return. My second submission, I did make one submission to PSA that I'm still waiting on, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So hopefully this video gives hope for you as well. All right, final card of the order. I think I saw 1 there. That's not great. You can see how it presents. Survey says 1.5. And I knew this was lower grade. You can see the surface has some wear. The corners aren't perfect. I was hoping this might pull out a 2, but I suppose a 1.5 is a nice consolation prize and a better than a 1. So I should still be able to recoup some money. And I'll get into this financial breakdown section, but this is a card I had trouble selling as the raw card. So getting it slabbed should help my resale potential. So interesting, it looks like they put 1 of these, 2 of these in a case, but the Ernie Banks they did not. So I'll go ahead and sleeve this up. So fun reveal there. Not bad, in my opinion, for my first ever return. Nice to keep it small. Stay tuned for the financial breakdown. So I am absolutely thrilled that they provide these scans free of charge. In the background leading up to this little screen recording, I simply downloaded these images from the SGC app on my phone. And then just to get them on my personal laptop, I uploaded the images to a cloud folder and then downloaded them here to this folder where I keep my scans. And I'll show you just how easy it is for me to list these on eBay. So I didn't have to do the work. Usually the scanning is a big bottleneck for me. That's kind of what takes, all the time to do, especially looking at low dollar singles in volume. But with this, I can just fly through. You can see me typing out the grade. I'm going to go ahead and put NM, near mint, HOF. Let's go ahead and price this at, around $100. And I had done some research up front, so I kind of know how to price these. or at least how I want to price these. And the key thing here is for this hits lister application, I got to follow the order that the scans are in. But I'm just typing out codes here. Looking at the card to my left, card number 15, and this one is an SGC 1.5. I'm going to go ahead and say white back HOF. I'll leave out fair because no one really cares about that. And then finally here, the Hank Aaron. So I'm typing as I'm talking, really not too tedious. Of course, this is a small order, so it's not expected to take too long, but imagine typing in these details one by one. Let's do Hall of Fame VG there. All right, and format. This is going to be fixed price, which I will automatically add a best offer option. That said, I think these are priced pretty fairly, so not going to probably consider offers from the get-go. Let's see, 9773 is the first image here. And thankfully, from using Google Sheets, I can just fill out this formula and not have to worry about much else. So that's the nifty thing about using Google Sheets. I can write a bunch of just formulas and stuff that help me fill out the spreadsheet. So the scans are done. The images are already in this numerical format. Great. So let's go ahead and run the code. Everything looks good on the input side. This is not the most user-friendly interface, but it's okay because I'm the only user, right? I haven't deployed this for anyone. And so the quick question I ask is, what image prefix are we looking for? And so you can see my scanner defaults to the date. So it said, hey, do you want 2025-0305 underscore to be your prefix, because that's the default, and no, I actually just want IMG underscore. So we'll go ahead and run this. Input check looks good. Awesome. Gonna do its time. Right now it's actually pushing those scans to an accessible repository on AWS so that eBay will be able to read the links and put them to the listings. It's also translating all of this shortcut information into the expected values. For instance, like the condition, the eBay listing is going to say SGC graded this and what the grade is. So that's great. Took 25 seconds to process all those. Awesome. And you can see here just a snapshot. This is actually what will pass to eBay. This is all the hard work the code did in the background, talking about the teams and taking my shorthand input and putting it in there. And you can see the grader, the grade is all different. It got the prices. It got my policies. So it pulled these policies for my eBay shop where I'm located and added a boilerplate description. So that is great news. Let's go ahead and upload this. Singles upload file, you can see the time it was created. This should not take too long. And if you've ever used the bulk upload feature, awesome. If you haven't, really something you should check out. I have a bunch of videos on this. Upload completed. These things are going to be live on my shop. Let's just go ahead and verify a few details, as we always want to know what's going on to our shop. Usually quicker to check on mobile. I'm not doing that at this second, but thankfully this stuff is well sorted. So look at this. Boom. Willie Mays, 1972 tops, yada yada. You can read this. Okay, there's a mild bug. I just got to capitalize NM when it sees it. It does that for VG. Of course, everything I typed here was all lowercase because that's easier. I don't want to have to mess with capital letters while I am just trying to be as quick as possible. And then here we go. SGC 1.5, it even got the decimal right. So very cool. We got these clean scans. I think one thing I'll do in the future to maybe set myself apart is I'll fill this white space with the actual team color, since I haven't played in the graded card space all this much, and I don't even have a flatbed scanner. So usually when I'm posting graded cards, I'm just using images that I take with my phone, and they still look pretty good, but these look better. So I think it'd look nice if I put the Cubs color in the background. And it filled in all this stuff for me in the format that eBay expects and requires. And it also added this marketing banner here towards the end. So pretty fun there. It's got all my policies, my shipping, and the card details, 1956 tops. And it's even got the card name in the format, so that's cool. Baseball, card number 15. Awesome. And then my boilerplate description. So pretty excited about that. Really, really excited that SGC provides those scans as part of the submission. That really simplifies the time to get things listed. I'm hoping PSA does the same. I would imagine they do, because this is just awesome. And I was able to unbox these and have these listed just within minutes while narrating a video, because all this is going to my store live as we are talking. So anyways, other videos are out on my channel about the software that I wrote to help me with this, but without it, I could imagine grading the cards and then spending the time to type all that darn information in would be quite tedious. Jumping over here to the financial analysis, and I want to preface this section by saying I never want to do this level of analysis with any future grading orders, but when you're doing something for the first time, it really is a beneficial exercise to count the dollars and cents of absolutely everything you're doing, just so you get a feel for all the cost involved. If you don't do this level of critical thinking on really anything financially related the first time, then you might let some things fall through the cracks. After I show this, I'll reveal what I do on a normal basis, and that's using some data-driven analysis and some dashboard features that do a lot of this stuff for me, and it's next to no time to do that. So this took a while to prepare, even though it's not the prettiest presentation in the world, but really thinking about everything that goes into it. So starting with the Willie Mays here, you can see I bought this right at the tail end of 2024. The listing title was absolutely terrible. It showed up somehow in one of my saved searches, lot of 9 Willie Mays baseball cards, and immediately my eyes jumped to the 1972 tops. You can see even the picture from the listing had it cut off. You couldn't even see the bottom edge or corners, but it looked in really good condition. And as I've been thinking about grading, this one came to be a suitable candidate just based on the picture. And I thought the price was pretty solid as well. As pictured, there was no penny sleeve for either of those two cards in the top loader, so I was not surprised when they were shipped that way. And that is just something that you got to keep in mind when buying. This was a newer seller, I think, on eBay, and you can tell by the title, and a pretty fair price, I think, in hindsight looking at it. And because this was a lot, I was able to do a couple of things to lower my cost basis or adjust my cost basis for the one that I chose to send to grading. There was that low-grade 1971 Topps card, and that sold within a week of me buying the lot. So I got it, listed it for $19.99 eBay standard envelope, and that yielded just about $16.50 in earnings from selling that one. And then a few weeks later, I'd compiled 6 of these kind of oddball post-plane career cards into a lot and made a few bucks on that. And that is just gravy. I wasn't buying this with the intent to make money really at all from those oddball cards, but it's nice to add close to $3 back into your pocket, and it doesn't take me much time to list that with the automated listing software. And then the big boy here, you can see that sold date of March 6th. Well, that was within 24 hours of listing this, and I accepted an offer that was 5% off my listed price. Just as a heads up, if you ever see something in my eBay store and you want to offer 95% of what it's listed, I am almost certain to accept that offer. So, it sold really quick. In hindsight, I probably could have squeezed a few more bucks out of this, but it's all groovy because this one, factoring in the purchase price, the other earnings, the adjusted cost basis for this one card, which is why I bought the lot, the grading fees, all told, ended up with just over 19% profit compared to that original investment. And that's fun. That's good. I could have held out probably for a few more bucks, but given that this was my first submission, and I really did it as a learning exercise, this was really cool. So a little difficult to part ways with a high-graded 1972 Topps card of arguably the greatest baseball player of all time, but that's why I did it, and this one proved to be successful for the full value stream of acquiring this, selling off some stuff, grading, and then selling the graded card. The Ernie Banks, kind of a different story here. You can see just jumping to that profit in the bottom right. Yeah, sure, I lost 44%, really only $15 on this, but this is a good time to talk about goals. So with the Mays, I bought that with the intent of trying out grading and selling it at a profit, and I was successful on that. When I bought this card in September 2024, I was actually flirting with the idea of keeping this in my Hall of Fame personal collection. And so I sat on this. I don't even think I had it listed for sale for a while. It was just in my stack of Hall of Fame vintage cards. Then after a while, I listed it for sale at probably a higher price than it was worth just to see if anyone would bite. Didn't even get any offers on it. And then after a few months, I kind of realized that, my money and my personal collection interest are best served elsewhere. So I'm going to go ahead and sell this one. So it was listed, but really was striking out on finding a buyer. And this was the situation where I thought that by grading it, even though it might not be the best financial play, I will be able to sell it faster. And then I'll be able to take that cash and put that quote unquote bad money into good money or into something that I would like. And so my goals were different with the Ernie Banks card than the Willie Mays card. This was really an investment to resell faster. And that is based on the assumption that graded cards are going to have higher demand than ungraded cards. And as mentioned, this grade, a 1.5, is really not too stellar, but there's still a big market for people buying graded, authenticated cards, especially from 1954, 55, 56 Topps, which are just iconic sets. And so in the regard that this helped me resell faster, obviously successful. You can see it sold on March 11th. That's within a week of getting it back from SGC. So I was okay going into this knowing that I would lose a few bucks. This was a purchase that wasn't even bought with grading in mind, but became a good candidate as I thought more about it. The Hank Aaron lot. This one, when I bought it, wasn't convinced that the purchase price was all that amazing. I thought it was relatively fair. Terrible title, rough sideways image. I could tell there was damage. The 1971 Topps was in terrible condition. That was never a grading candidate. In the 67, I had that damage on the back in some additional pictures. And also in those additional pictures were similar to the Mays, which was also from the same seller, were some of these post-playing days oddball cards that I was able to sell to recoup just a couple bucks. And ironically, sold the Aaron 71 Topps and the lot after I'd submitted for grading, which didn't really factor into my decision. I thought the 67 was a decent candidate, given that it's a collectible card. Hank Aaron's one of the best players of all time. In the grade, looked to me to be around that 3, maybe on a good day a 4, which I was not expecting, but would have been nice. And you can see here that all in, including my purchase price and the other sales, lost about $16 all in on this one. And I wasn't too surprised. You'll hear a lot of conventional wisdom from resellers that you make money on the buy. And I think this is a good example of that, where after I bought this, I probably realized that I should have made an offer or just passed on the opportunity and, put my money elsewhere. But you can't win them all. And this is part of the reason why you go through this level of detail, just to make sense of your decisions that you've made in the past and also decisions that you're going to make in the future. If you add all of this up, and if you even get even more detailed, factoring in things like credit card rewards on purchases, burden supplies, which do not show up anywhere in those numbers that I showed you on the last few pages. Those are all direct cost, but we have to factor in supplies and stuff like overhead, like your eBay store subscription, which has a cost associated with it. The way I do it is I find a cost per order for every order that goes through my business. And that way I'm able to accurately know, or at least have a good model for what did my supplies cost for the 7 orders associated with all of the stuff that I just showed you. So including the extra sales, the SGC, etc. What did that supplies actually cost me, and what did the overhead cost me? And adding up all the dollars and cents, it's as if I lost around $15. Woo-hoo on these 3 cards. So not a big deal from an absolute money perspective. That's really negligible at the end of the year, right? And but it is kind of fun looking at this. And then you got to ask yourself, was I successful? And the first decision point is, do I acquire the cards? And if you go back and look at these numbers, the answer for just this really small sample size of 3 cards is yes, I should have bought the Mays and graded it. The Banks, probably shouldn't have even bought that in the first place if I had the intention of grading. And the Aaron, probably shouldn't have bought that lot in the first place. So that's kind of the first question. But if you've already made that decision, and this is exactly the spot I was in, I had the cards in hand. I had already paid my dues in the past. It was a sunk cost. I'm now at decision point 2. I have the cards. Does grading add value? Because I'm not going to recoup I'm not going to avoid that original charge because I've already bought the cards. This gets into a little bit of approximation because it's pretty hard to evaluate the cost of raw vintage cards. And just as an aside, one of the reasons why I'm interested in grading these is that many sellers who sell raw vintage have to really build a great reputation for that. And people then seek them out because they trust that the conditions are good, that the cards are legitimate, the cards are authentic. If you look at my eBay store and the stuff that's kind of in my wheelhouse that I normally sell, vintage, especially raw vintage singles, is not really in my wheelhouse. And so for me, there is a bias that I should grade a lot of this stuff because it's going to make it easier to sell rather than if I listed it as a raw vintage single on my specific shop. Maybe this will change in the future if I start getting more into vintage sales, but that is one thing to keep in mind. So a little bit of a range of error here. But if you look at that Willie Mays, I could probably sell the ungraded copy for around $45, and after shipping, fees, yada, yada, ended up in my pocket with $35. So you have to consider that. We can't just compare revenue. And then I got the numbers listed there for the Banks and the Aaron. And if you analyze this question of I have the cards, does grading add value? In this situation, taking the graded sale minus the grading fees and comparing that to what the raw card would sell for, did really well on the Willie Mays, did not do great on the Banks, lost some money there as far as an opportunity cost goes. And then the Hank Aaron probably got an Alexander Hamilton as a result of doing the grading of that. And you have to keep in mind that I dropped these off on February 7th at a local card show. I received them back on March 5th, and all cards were sold by March 11th. So from a turn time perspective, absolutely excellent. And I personally am willing to shave profits a little bit if I can get stuff out of the door and then reinvest that money elsewhere. So very successful in that regard, and grading added roughly $32 in value. So after having the cards, not even considering what I paid for them, it did make sense on aggregate that I should have graded all 3 of these and submitted them in. And the caveat being that the Banks, I probably lost money compared to the raw copy. The other thing to keep in mind is cash flow. And I've kind of talked about this a bit, but by grading, that was able to return after the grading fees $116 in cold hard cash that I can now use elsewhere, which has been one of my goals this month, is to recoup some cash and get that back in my business with some expected larger expenses with a PSA grading submission or 2 on the horizon. And so that's something else to keep in mind, is that if you need cash, being able to liquidate stuff quickly is very important. And that's kind of intangible. I can't say for certain that the Bank sold much faster because it was graded, but I can say I had it listed as a raw card for quite some time, didn't even get any offers on it. And then as soon as I grade it, got an offer within a week and sold it. And that is good. So I am led to believe that the Banks did sell much faster because it was graded, even though it was only 1.5. And the last intangible point here is that this is such a small sample size, really hard to make permanent decisions based on just 3 cards. And at the end of the day, very happy with how I went about this. I think I learned a lot in the process. Earnings are highly sensitive to grades. If the Aaron would have come back a 4, if the Mays would have come back a 6, if, there are a lot of ifs involved, a lot of stuff that I don't have control over. And so if you do this for just 3 cards, it's really hard to make a long-term decision. And so that's why I'm excited to make a few more submissions. The next few will be with PSA, as I mentioned. But that will probably help inform my future decision making on should I grade things. Now, if you polled me here at the end of this exercise, will I grade as part of my routine business moving forward, which is really why I'm doing this kind of experiment. It's why I'm submitting things to grading, is I am evaluating if I want to keep doing that. If I had to answer today, I would say the answer is yes, although it would not be like a monthly thing. It would be highly opportunistic. It would be, I'd buy a bunch of cards and come across some good ones in the lot that appear to be in good condition, and I'm going to set those aside for a future grading submission that I will do once I have enough cards to make it worthwhile, or if PSA is showing up to a local card shop, or there's a local card show where SGC will be, which is what I did with this order, then I will drop them off. But if I gave an answer today, again, subject to change, I probably won't go out of my way to buy certain cards with the intention of grading them and actually source them with that in mind. It probably won't be, okay, I'm going to have a save search for 1972 Topps Willie Mays, and if I find them at this price and they look good in the pictures, I'm going to grade them. I don't see myself doing that. And namely, that's because of the variability in grading and a lot of the upfront cost involved. But hey, if something pops up on my feed and I didn't spend a lot of time searching for it and it looks to be a 1972 Topps Willie Mays in good condition, then yeah, I'll probably buy. Or if I buy a massive lot of Topps Gold Parallels and there's a Manny Machado rookie card sitting in there and I got it for $1 at a unit cost basis, heck yeah, I'm going to put that in my grading pile. And that's really kind of the trend with this PSA submission I made is cards I've either had my collection for a long time or cards I've just kind of acquired at a really low cost basis. But shelling out big money for raw cards that are in good condition, a lot of people are probably doing the same thing and looking at them as grading candidates. So I'm kind of on the fence about that, but I think I'll probably stick to raw cards. I will buy graded cards, someone else putting the money in there. But we'll see how that changes. So I'll keep you posted on what I decide. But that's enough of this financial analysis. I'll just tease this on the screen one more time. And now I'm going to jump over to my financial performance dashboard to show you why I won't be doing this level of detail on PowerPoint or Google Sheets in the future. If you've watched some of my monthly recaps, you've seen my website that I call Hits Counter, and this takes all of my shipping labels, eBay sales, sales from Reddit, all my purchases, and lumps them together, and it allows me really to get a quick view on where my money's going and how I'm doing. And so just as a tease, this is showing year-to-date 2025. Right now, if you look at my net profit, the cold hard bottom line, I'm out about $243 year to date. Now with that, there's been a bunch of investment here, and you can see at one point, after buying 3 Mike Trout rookie cards, I was down over $1,000. And so this month, February and March, really been building up my cash again. And you can see, March 6th, this would have been when the Aaron and the Mays cards sold. So a nice little slope in the positive direction there. Now I use the skew field very liberally. to help me with my accounting. And so all of these sales that I did were in what I call just vintage, real creative there. But if you look year to date, my vintage buys and sales and all that is about $107 in direct profit. So that takes out fees, that takes out any promoted listings type stuff. It does not take out store overhead or shipping labels in this case. Right now, those are yet to be incorporated into this particular plot. And you can see by revenue, hey, in March did really well. Well, that's because I sold all three of those vintage cards, which are all listed here. Now, factoring in all of that stuff year to date, it's as if I have made $90 in profit on vintage. Now, that differs from what you saw on my PowerPoint because I have more irons in the fire than just those three cards. And you can see here, I've sold a partial set lot of 1972 tops and done a few other things in this category in 2025. And then the other thing to keep in mind is the banks hit the books way the heck back in September. And so maybe a better view will be to go back to September 7th to actually capture that banks card in the calculations. And you can imagine I've done a lot more with vintage in that time than just the banks. So I really like this way of looking at it because it helps you just look past the individual transactions in either the individual wins or individual losses, the wins like the Willie Mays, the losses like the Ernie Banks, and it really helps you take a collective view, kind of like an index fund in investing, where they won't all be winners. So factoring in my vintage project, so all the vintage that I have bought and sold since I bought that Ernie Banks, I'm up over $600 in direct profit. And if you factor in all the shipping and fees and all of that, an approximation is up $470 since September 7th. So that also makes me feel better about the banks because if I take a wider look at this, then I'm doing much better. And you can kind of get a feel for where these sales fit into everything. Since September 7th, the Willie Mays was my best selling from a revenue standpoint vintage card. And I've had some other fun ones here and there. It was also my biggest purchase since September 7th. So that's another thing to keep in mind. But anyways, hope you liked it. This allows me, just by using the SKU field and taking the eBay reports and shipping reports and putting those into one, it allows me to do a lot of the math without really having to think about it, besides updating the file references for those things. And that way I don't have to get stuck in dollars and cents land. And you can imagine, for three cards, this is doable, but for a lot of cards, really, really tough. So that's why I like transforming the way I do things from an accounting standpoint and using these interactive features. So hopefully that gives you some hope. And hey, just while I'm here, I have profited since September 7th, 2024. Woohoo! $100 and a lot of cards that I've kept. That's really why I do this. I'm trying to self-sustain and fund this hobby. If you watch my monthly recaps, that will be clear to you. But thanks for watching. We'll keep you posted. Keep an eye out for my next video coming out on why I decided to make a submission to PSA.